Have shared historic relations dating back several centuries. India was one of the countries at the forefront of the international community's support to the anti-apartheid movement. It was the first country to sever trade relations with the apartheid government in 1946. The ANC maintained a representative office in New Delhi from the 1960s onwards. India restored relations with South Africa after a gap of more than 40 years with the opening of a cultural centre in Johannesburg in May 1993. Well, today the two countries have taken their bilateral relations to a new level. On the agenda, we now take a closer look at the steadily strengthening of cordial relations between the two countries and the partnerships that they've enjoyed. Dr. K.G. Srinivasa joins me now, who's the Consul General of India in Johannesburg. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be at SABC.
All right, so this is your last day as the Consul General in Johannesburg, and you're off to Guyana as Ambassador or High Commissioner there.
Indeed.
Congratulations on the appointment. When do you start?
I start in early August.
Right. Okay.
Thank you so much for the wishes.
So how many years have you been in South Africa?
I've been here for 3 years now.
Right.
And it's been great.
Okay, so you understand fully this relationship that India and South Africa have enjoyed. Tell us about, in the time that you've been Consul General here, what are the notable things that you've seen in the strengthening of these relationships? This goes back centuries.
Indeed. India and South Africa go back a long way, almost 150 to 60 years. And the Indian diaspora here has a rich history. And for us, as you were earlier mentioning, India's role in removing apartheid in South Africa is recognized worldwide. And we fondly remember welcoming the South African cricket team into India in the early 90s, Kepler Wessels, Clive Rice and that team. So we, as students in India, we learnt about Madiba, we learnt about the struggle of the South African nation. And even if you ask young students, they would know about all this. So that's the importance of the relations between India and South Africa. So for the last 3 years, when I was posted here in 2016, I really felt that it was a dream come true for me, because I always wanted to be at this wonderful nation in this exotic land. And when we came here, there were some challenges, but we were able to surmount them, and we were able to give a great impulse, if you may call so, to the bilateral business and economic relations. We were able to improve Indian investment into South Africa, which now stands at close to about $8 billion. About 150 Indian companies are in South Africa, all the big names of India. And we have been able to generate about 22,000 jobs for the South Africans. And the corporate social responsibility initiative has really picked up a lot. So on the political front, we have had amazing engagements in the last couple of years, and we look forward to continuing that.
All right, so you've mentioned some big corporates that are here in the country, and I know that one of the largest trading partners is India. What sort of areas of industry and commerce has South Africa and India been exchanging?
India is the 5th largest export destination for South Africa, and the 4th largest import source. And of course, South Africa has 2 important trading partners in Asia, and we are the 2nd most important. And among these, the main sectors are, of course, mining, minerals. Coal and gold are the most important exports for South Africa to India. And along with that, we have bilateral trade in automobiles, machinery, IT, to name a few. But of late, we have had a great interest in South African companies going to India. Naspers, for example, last December made an announcement to invest $1.2 billion into 2 Indian startups, Byju's and Swiggy's. And we are having amazing interest by your insurance sector. Discovery and other companies are really interested to go to India because it's a virgin market. Yeah. So you have amazing solutions, in the finance sector, agro-business, food processing, and also deep mining. These are all the important sectors that we believe that we can work hard. And from Indian side, we can work on the healthcare and pharma, the startups especially. the startup space is booming in India. We are the third largest in the world in the startup space. We are also able to share our skills. You know, our Prime Minister Modi, he has started something called as the Skill Development Initiative in India, wherein you improve the skills of the youth and they are made employable.
Right. And I guess with the fourth industrial revolution, technology is another area that more cooperation will probably be in the offing.
Indeed. You know, IT is of course been a strong point of India, but along with that, the space of entrepreneurs in all these IT companies, biotechnology is one of the newest things which is happening in India. We can actually leverage our best practices on that. And we are also seeing a lot of interest in AI from India into South Africa and vice versa, which we saw in the discussions which happened on the follow-up of the President Ramaphosa's visit this year. So we believe that there is lots to come.
All right, so this relationship between India and South Africa has happened very well over the centuries, but it's also part of a grouping which is BRICS, and I wonder how that has changed the relationship, being part of this grouping with Russia and Brazil.
And China, of course.
And China, yes.
So, you know, BRICS is a very important grouping of emerging and developing economies. I suppose they comprise about 40% of the world population, and by 2020, they will actually contribute to half the world's GDP. So, this group of economies have really come together to work on common goals. South Africa and India also share the membership of IBSA, of the IOR, the Indian Ocean Rim Initiative, then the G20 and many other like the Non-Aligned Movement and G77. So BRICS has also become a focus point for improving our trade between all these economies, and also this recent development of the New Development Bank, which has actually helped us in bringing about socially, environmentally and economically sustainable projects. They're funding them. And you know, the first the regional office of this bank is in Johannesburg, and that shows the importance of South Africa for BRICS, and both all these countries are able to articulate their views across all sectors, like be it the climate change. That's one important sector where they're working very hard to formulate their common policy. And last year in the Johannesburg BRICS Summit, the Johannesburg Declaration, I think about 102 agreements were signed between these two countries, between these 5 countries. Yeah. And this really shows that this grouping will be a force to reckon with in the world politics.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the cultural ties, because South Africa enjoys, I think, probably the deepest in terms of generations of descendants of Indian migrants that are connected to India. And so there's a lot of movement and connection between South Africa and India. We also, of course, celebrate people like Mahatma Gandhi, who spent time in this part of the world. And I just wonder, on the cultural front, is this something that continues to deepen over time?
Indeed. You know, we are very fortunate because, you know, Madiba used to say that India sent in the lawyer Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi to South Africa, and South Africa gave India the Mahatma, the great soul, because for 22 years he was here in South Africa. He learned his struggle in South Africa. And in India, we are very grateful to South Africa for that. The diaspora here is about 1.3 million strong, about 5 to 6 generations deep. And they have been contributing actively. If you see the anti-apartheid struggle, you have Ahmed Kathrada, Lalu Chiba, all the greats are there. And we are trying to get that culture, that cultural roots revived. You know, South Africa is a rainbow nation. Yeah. India is also a very rich in diversity. So we understand the nuances of all this. And the Indian groupings here in South Africa, they're very vibrant. They have their own, you know, age-old customs being preserved here. And we found actually that some of the customs, the language they use in their rituals is the 18th century language, wow, which is a great start for any historian or any anthropologist to actually study them. And this year happens to be also the 150th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi's birth. So we are celebrating it in a big way. We are engaging students, trying to promote Gandhian ideals of non-violence, satyagraha, and at the same time we are trying to promote environmental awareness. We are having a Gandhi cycle ride tomorrow in Lenasia. We are encouraging people to join to spread the message of Gandhi in this age where violence needs to be curbed. So we are very actively involved on the cultural front in South Africa.
All right. Are you finding that, alongside culture, often tourism is one of the things that plays out? Are you finding a lot more South Africans, perhaps not of Indian descent, visiting India more and more as a destination, and also greater interest in Indians coming to South Africa?
Indeed. In India, there is a tremendous interest about South Africa. So every year we have a flood of tourists coming from India to South Africa, because not only because of its exquisite nature and the great history that it has, but the other way around is also true, because India has started the e-visa, the electronic visa regime, which issues free visas to South Africans. So it's an online process. You just fill it and within one day you get the visa. So it's easier to go to India. And then India's tourism has been growing rapidly in the last few years because of various infrastructural projects that we have undertaken. And this is a thing that we believe will get more boost if there is a direct air link between the two countries.
Wow. All right, so we've talked about culture, we've talked about tourism, and we can't leave it without talking about film, because and I'm just wondering again, are we seeing South Africa and India cooperating in not just the cultural aspects, but film as well, because you've got a huge industry and ours is growing.
A few years back, many Indian films, especially Hindi films, were actually shot in South Africa.
Wow.
So that actually also promoted tourism in a way for South Africa in India. Of late, we are trying to see if we can get in an agreement between the two nations to promote Indian companies to come and shoot in South Africa, with some concessions, of course. Everybody wants that.
Yeah.
But I believe that the market is there and your country will do great. I have always been a believer that South Africa has a humongous potential. It's just that the policies need to be streamlined, but I think President Ramaphosa is there for it. He will do it.
So for young people who are thinking about studying in another country, India is a great destination? Indeed.
In fact, we produce the second largest number of science and technology graduates in the world. And, we are good teachers in science and maths. In fact, India would love to collaborate with South Africa in the education sector. So there are many Indian universities who want to come, schools or other education institutions who want to collaborate with South Africa. For us, the main impetus would be people-to-people links. And also, we are working now to develop a skills development institute in Pretoria. India is investing about $5 million in the machinery and human resource at the TVET College in Pretoria to train South African youth. So this is a pilot project, which was, there was a soft inauguration last year by Minister Naledi Pandor, and we believe that this would be a template for the future.
All right, I'm going to leave it by saying thank you very much indeed, Consul General Dr. K. Srinivasa, but soon to be High Commissioner in Guyana, the land of Clive Lloyd and cricket.
Thank you.
We wish you the best. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.